Today we're going to talk about the derivatives of the 6 trigonometric functions and how to find them. So if I ask you what the derivative with respect to x of sine x is, you should be able to answer that. And actually this is where we're going to start. We're going to look at the graph of sine x and try to figure out what the derivative is graphically. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's a graph of our sine curve. And what I want us to do right now, and you guys all have this on your sheet, with your group, take a moment and I want you to answer these 3 questions. Alright, so sketch your derivative, answer these 3 questions, and see if you can figure out what the derivative is, or what the function that the derivative is. So what I want you to come up with is f prime of x equals some function. Hit pause right now, and after your group has come up with an answer, you can restart the video and see if you're on the right track. So I've sketched the graph of my derivative, and the way I did that was I first sketched in these horizontal tangent lines. And remember, when your tangent line is horizontal, that means your derivative is going to have a value of 0. So first I got all those horizontal tangents and I plotted those as zeros for my derivative. And then I went back and I looked at all these spots right here where the slope seems to be, this slope looks like +1. So I went up here and gave the derivative a value of +1. Here the slope looks like a -1. So I dropped and gave the derivative a value of -1. And I did that in several places. Here and here, straight down, and here, straight up, and so forth. Now, if you look at our red function is our derivative. So I'm going to go ahead and label that because I told you guys always to label everything. There's our derivative. And remember, your blue function is your original function, f of x equals sine x. So let's look at that red function. What does that look like to you? That should look really familiar. In fact, it looks like if you took the blue function and just shifted it over pi over 2 units, you'd get the red function. So hopefully your group came up with that, and that is our cosine of x. So the derivative of sine is cosine. So we have the answer to the first question. The derivative with respect to x of sine x equals cosine x. Okay, and you can verify that with your calculator. If you go to your home screen, click on the calculus tab and then click differentiate. If you put in sine x comma x, your calculator should spit out cosine x. So go ahead and verify that with your calculator as well. Okay, we're going to look at the next graph, which the next most basic trig function that we use all the time is cosine x. So let's go ahead and look at the graph of cosine x. And let's do something very similar to what we just did with the graph of sine x. So hit pause right now. Go ahead, work with your group, answer these questions, and then come back after you've got the answers. Okay, I'm going to zip through this explanation a little bit faster because hopefully your group got pretty good at graphing these things. If you look at the green function, which is the derivative of the blue function, it looks periodic. Again, it looks like a sine or a cosine curve. But if you look at what's happening here, instead of a sine curve going up, it goes down. So if we were to sketch the sine curve, remember a sine curve looks like this. And then it would go down and so forth. So this isn't the same as a sine curve, but it's very similar. In fact, if you look at this piece and then this piece and their relationship, this is just a reflection about the x-axis. And to do that, we can just take the opposite of the function we think it looks like. So if we take the opposite of the sine of x, we're going to get our green function. Okay, because our yellow function is the sine x, and the green function is the opposite of that. All right, so there's our derivative. The derivative of the cosine x is the opposite of the sine x. So far, we figured out that the derivative of sine x is cosine x, and that the derivative of cosine x is the opposite of sine x. So let's use these 2 facts in conjunction with some simple trig identities to figure out what the derivatives of the last 4 trig functions might be. So we still haven't figured out the derivative of these guys, but we do know these 2 derivatives, and we also know that the tangent can be rewritten as the sine of x over the cosine of x. And this is a quotient. You guys know how to take the derivative of quotients. You need to use the quotient rule. So what I want you guys to do is in groups, so I want one group to take each one of these. You guys need to decide. So one group find the derivative of tangent x, one group find the derivative of cotangent, one group this one group this one. I think there are 4 groups in class, but if there are more than 4 groups, then I want each group to pick one. You might have some doubling up, but then you can compare and make sure that everybody's got the right answer. So let's just make sure that we've got the right identities. Cotangent, remember, is cosine x over sine x, and secant x is 1 over cosine x. You're still going to use the quotient rule to find the derivative of that. And then cosecant is 1 over sine x. Now, when you do these, you do want to simplify completely. So simplify your answers completely so that you get a nice answer, and then we'll come back and take a look at what you got. Also, as you're working in groups, please put up the problems on the boards. So grab some board space along the room and work together so that you can show the other groups what you ended up with. Go ahead and pause the video right now, work as groups, and when you come back, we'll see if you got what you should have gotten. And here's what you should have gotten. Now, if your answers don't look exactly like what you see here, check to see if your answers are equivalent. For example, if you have -1 over sine squared x, that's equivalent to the opposite of cosecant squared x. So just double check for equivalence. You might want to pause the video now so you can double check and write these down. This is how we actually want to write the derivatives. So go ahead, press pause, and verify your answers. I hope that went okay and that you got them all right, or if you didn't have them right, you found your mistakes. If for some reason you didn't get one figured out and you just don't know what went wrong, please copy these down and we can discuss any questions you have in class. All right, at the end of your page, your handout, you have some problems to work on. We're going to look at those problems right now. Here they are. You've got them all. What I want you to do now for the next or for the rest of class is go ahead and work on these with your groups. Save the last 10 minutes of class to go over these. I will have the solutions recorded in the video. So go ahead and again press pause right now so that you can have time to work on these in your groups.